And we are live. Gas prices set an all-time high. What else is new? It seems like that happens every week when we do this show. Inflation continues to burn, and a lot of important people are talking about how we might be facing some economic hardship in the near future. Joe Biden's solution? Double down on renewable energy. It's a broken record when it comes to that stuff. We're going to talk about all of that and more in episode 349 of the In the Tank podcast. Oh, all right. Somewhat new intro there, I guess. I couldn't really tell much of a difference. Welcome to the Tank Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Donald Kendal. Joining me today, I've got Jim Lakely, VP of the Heartland Institute, who promises he's got some salacious things to say in our opening chit-chat. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I guess I'm in a bad mood because I'm still not 100% over COVID. We have some ridiculous clown show theater of January 6th prime time going on all the networks tonight. So, yeah, I'm a little salty.
Also joining us, Chris Talgo, Senior Editor here at the Heartland Institute. How are you today, good sir?
Preparing for this circus that is going to ensue tonight on the January 6th, commission. So it'll be, I'm sure, can't miss it.
Yeah, considering that we're like a year and a half away from those events, don't we have to say January 6th, 2021 at this point?
We should.
It's so long ago.
No. It's a date that goes down in infamy, like 9/11.
9/11.
Hell, that's what they said. It was the worst. Or like, I don't know. Does anyone remember the date that the White House was burned in the War of 1812? Because that's another date. He probably does.
No, but they did compare it to December 7th, 1941. So
there you go.
Gotcha. So before we get into all of this, I just want to put that message out there that I do at the beginning of every episode for our audio-only listeners that are catching this show probably on a Friday, that you can join us a day earlier, watch the video version of the show live on YouTube and Rumble and Twitter and Facebook on Thursdays at noon Central Time. You can join the conversation, put your comments and your questions in there. Maybe we'll show your comment on screen. Maybe we'll address your questions on the fly. And then also make sure to subscribe to us on any platform that you're watching. But also, if you're watching on YouTube, to make sure to subscribe to the In the Tank podcast channel on YouTube. We created a separate channel after YouTube threatened to destroy our main channel because of some of the things that, let's face it, Jim said. And so in an effort to not censor ourselves, we created a separate channel on YouTube where if things are a little bit, the topics that we're going to cover are a little controversial, we'll only do it on that channel to preserve our main channel. So subscribe to that to protect our free speech and also to ensure that you don't miss an episode. So as Jim and Chris already teased with their references to a circus that might be happening tonight, that apparently is the thing that the media wants us to pay attention to. With all the things going on in the world, all-time high gas prices, raging inflation, war in Ukraine, explosion of violent crime in cities, constitutional crisis involving the Supreme Court, stock market down 10% for the year. All of that is
wide open border.
All of that is not enough to distract the government from focusing on what is most important to them, politics. So tonight is the opening night for a grand political theater. Congressional hearings will begin for the events revolving around the unguided tour that took place on the 6th of January, about a year and a half ago. Chris, you pay a lot more attention to the corporate media than I do. What should we be expecting tonight?
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be just extremely over the top. Diney, I think I told you yesterday that the committee has hired a former Good Morning America and Nightline producer to produce the spectacle that we will all be watching on primetime MSNBC and CNN. So, yeah, I'm sure I'll probably, click in for couple of minutes here and there, but no, I am not going to be devoting, a couple hours of my life tonight to watching, Jerry Nadler and, Lynn Cheney and just all these people, tell us how terrible things were on January 6th when we know that it was not nearly as bad as it was. They should release the footage, show us what really happened.
Oh, you know what? I think we should make you watch it, Chris. I think this should be part of your job for the next episode. You're going to be our correspondent.
I thought
tune in to see it.
I thought torture was illegal in the United States.
Good point. Good point. Jim, I mean, are you going to tune in? Are you expecting some fireworks? Is this going to be a snooze fest? What do you think?
No, I'm not going to tune in. I'm sure I'll watch clips on Twitter and other places and YouTube as people mock this this complete clown show for what it is. We should actually mention there was a big you glossed over it a little bit there, Donnie, in your rundown of all the other things that are going on in the United States that are more important than this stupid January 6th production show. Somebody tried to assassinate a sitting member of our Supreme Court, and he was inspired to do so by the leftist rhetoric of people like Chuck Schumer, who said, you're going to reap the whirlwind if you make these bad decisions. It's CNN's initial report on Kavanaugh, on this guy who got within feet of his door and then confessed that his plan was to bring meaning to his life. He thought, I could bring meaning to my life if I break into Brett Kavanaugh's house, assassinate him. I think the plan was to also, he had zip ties and he had knives and he had duct tape and his whole family was in there. So yeah, maybe probably tie up the mom and the two teen daughters, and maybe kill them too. He got within feet of the door before he was stopped. By the way, there should have been more police and more armed protection around Kavanaugh's house. But Nancy Pelosi, after a bill protecting our Supreme Court justices passed unanimously in the Senate, she refuses to bring it up for a vote to allow this to happen. And so she is, Dana Perino said this on Fox. I don't have cable anymore, but I saw a clip of this yesterday. Dana Perino on the 5 said that if Nancy Pelosi doesn't pass that bill immediately, first thing in the morning, unanimously, or whatever it takes, then she's complicit if anything happens to Kavanaugh or anybody else. And she's 100% correct. We live in a world now. And by the way, CNN's initial report on this plot to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh, sitting Supreme Court justice, which is something that is actually a danger to our republic. That actually does threaten the very republic itself. Not a 4-hour riot of Yahoos on January 6th, by the way, but we're going to be all day today and all day tomorrow. And, for however long it lasts, we're going to have to pretend that January 6th is actually a thing. But CNN's report questioned whether this guy even had any weapons. And then, they denied that he was some kind of Democrat or leftist, which he obviously was. And they said, this kind of danger is present on both sides. I am sick of this.
Yeah.
There is one side that demonizes their political opponents, that accuses anybody to the left of AOC of being a white nationalist.
Right.
And that these things lead to things like attempted assassinations on a sitting Supreme Court justice and to kill his family. What was it, 5 years ago? There was that shooting at that baseball park where the congressional baseball team, the Republican side, was practicing. The guy was a devoted leftist. He hated Donald Trump. He watched MSNBC all the time, loved Rachel Maddow, and felt that it was his duty to kill as many Republicans as possible because the Democratic and leftist rhetoric was that GOP healthcare policy was going to kill tens of thousands of people. We are living in, I don't know if we're ever going to get back to normal anymore, but we live in a society in which January 6th, like I said, a 4-hour riot, it was bad. Everybody who damaged property and committed crimes should pay for them, but they shouldn't be sitting as political prisoners without trial for 2 years, which is what a lot of them are doing, charged with parading. But we live in a place, look, the left, they actually would not care if let's be honest about this. They wouldn't care if Brett Kavanaugh and his family got killed. They would think that was, just the price to pay to keep abortion in the Constitution. That's the truth of the world that we live in right now. And we have politicians on the left that are encouraging this. We had an entire summer, the BLM, the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa riots all the time. Why was that allowed to go on and on? Why was it encouraged by our media elite, by our ruling class on the left? Because it served the purpose of getting Donald Trump out of the White House and making sure that he would be. And now that's what this whole January 6th thing is as well. It's to make sure that Donald Trump can't run for president again, because they're going to make him complicit in the almost overthrow, insurrection of our government. It is absurd. And they are already ignoring the Kavanaugh attempted assassination like it's no big deal. You know why? Because they're the ones that are complicit in it. They're encouraging this. This country's broken. I really sometimes feel like this country is broken. We have one party on the left and its media that just lost their collective minds in 2016 when Hillary lost, and they've just never gotten over it. And they are determined that nothing like that will ever happen again. And now they've actually extended it. There's no way Democrats should ever lose another election. They've done everything for that as well. So this is probably going to get us banned off of our Heartland channel. Andy's having a panic attack right now, producing this from his home. But, I am sick of living in a world where you turn on the TV, and you can watch this, Chris, because I won't do it, where they pretend that January 6th was a big deal and the attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh is just kind of the price that we have to pay if you try to go against the left.
Well, Jim got his energy back from his long COVID fight that he had. It's clear. He followed through with his claim that he had some salacious things to say. But Jim, I mean, those riots that you referenced, those were mostly peaceful, and those were just the unheard, getting their message out there. And this January 6th thing is the worst incident since August 24th, 1814, during the War of 1812 between the United States and England, when the British troops entered Washington, D.C. and burned down the White House. Thank you, Abel Windsor, for that factoid for us. But go ahead.
I heard a clip, a news clip of some talking head moron saying that, the January 6th was the worst attack on the Capitol in 200 years. Like, do you guys remember that the Capitol was actually bombed? Bombs went off by radical leftists in this 1970s. That happened. That was worse than what happened on January 6th. Some guy walking off with Nancy Pelosi's podium is not a threat to the Republic.
I think a plane went through the Pentagon. Does that count as being in the Capitol? Is that close enough?
I think that counts as a bigger attack on our democracy than, again, a 4-hour riot of some yahoos who obviously got out of hand and committed crimes. But that's not the same. And in fact, and of course, we all know that the plane that went down in Pennsylvania was aimed at the Capitol building.
Sure.
And I started working as a journalist at the Capitol in 2002 or 2003. It's been so long now, I don't remember. But I used to walk up from Union Station up the hill to the Capitol every day, and I'd look at that beautiful dome, and I'd think to myself, that's not supposed to be here. So that's a real attack on our democracy, not January 6th. And I'm freaking tired. I almost swore again. I'm freaking tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I haven't paid the closest attention to the whole January 6th narrative. I know enough to know that the unguided tour was far from an insurrection. And I know that there's a lot of accusations that Trump was trying to foment an insurrection at the Capitol building, and how, obviously that's overblown, not the case at all, and downright fake news. I mean, in my opinion, like some of the stuff that's leveled at Trump for this is worse than the aftermath of Charlottesville, where he was being accused of saying that neo-Nazis were good people, when in that statement in question, he specifically says neo-Nazis should be condemned completely. And then in this case, with the whole January 6th thing, when Trump's given that speech, he talks about how, people should have their voices heard peacefully, of course. He says that specifically. It's not like he's up there like, go burn down that Capitol building, take Nancy Pelosi's podium. Like, it's a joke to think that this is something bigger than that. But I do know that there's some things that go beyond the unguided tour, that Trump was trying to get some officials to undermine the election in some way or another. Chris, again, you watch CNN and MSNBC far more than I would even think of doing. Is there any fire here, or any smoke even from your perspective?
From my perspective, no. They're accusing Peter Navarro. They're accusing a bunch of ex-Trump officials, including Steve Bannon, of trying to plot this coup on January 6th. And the evidence is pretty thin from what I've seen. They've sent out some text messages and stuff. Mark Meadows, the whole Ginny Thomas affair. But it does not seem as if there was this high level coordinated plot to to overturn the 2020 election. That's just not true. It seems from all the evidence available that like Jim said, some people got too rowdy. They entered the Capitol, but when you look at the videotape, policemen were allowing them to enter. So there's a whole bunch of questions that have not been answered. Like, first of all, whatever happened, or not whatever happened, why did Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of DC, Muriel Bowser, why did they reject President Trump's request for 20,000 U.S. troops to police the Capitol on that day?
Right.
There's a lot of questions about FBI involvement and this Ray Epps guy, and how many plainclothes FBI agents were there and kind of starting trouble and citing and coordinating. I watched a really good documentary from Tucker Carlson about January 6th, and there is plenty of evidence that points that there actually might have been some coordination between the FBI with all this stuff. And just like we saw with the Michigan Governor Whitmer plot, it was not a bunch of people that came up with it. It was the FBI recruiting these people to become involved with it. So I doubt we will ever get to the bottom of what actually happened on January 6th, but I think that it's been totally blown out of proportion. On CBS News yesterday, they were saying that 5 police officers died on January 6th. That's just not true.
Right.
One of them had a stroke. Hours later, Brian Sicknick, he was not killed with
like the next
fire
day.
extinguisher. Yeah. So they're just making stuff up. We never got into the bottom of the story about what happened to Ashley Babbitt, and I guess it's just one of those things that we'll never know the full story. We'll never know. But I think it's obviously being exaggerated and blown way out of proportion by people like Eric Swalwell, Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, and just all the people on the January 6th Select Committee. So it's a partisan attack, and like both of you guys have said, we've got so much more that we should be focusing on. So much more.
Yeah, it's a partisan. It's a partisan event with the complicity. Well, I love using that word now because it was very popular to say complicit when Trump was president. If you didn't try to take him out of office at every moment you were awake, you were complicit in all the evil things he was doing to the United States of America. But again, this is the reason. What's his name? Who's the guy who just got arrested? Chris, who for ignoring the subpoena. Yeah, Peter Navarro. Yeah, he rejected the legitimacy of the subpoena for him to appear before Congress because he says this is not a legitimate committee, and he's right because the Republicans did not get, as every committee like this, and the rules of the House actually state, gets to pick their own members. And Nancy Pelosi said, no, you don't. In fact, they did pick their own members, and she knows that the people that she picked know a lot more, or will want to talk about fully what happened on January 6th, not just what the left wants the narrative to be on January 6th. So she rejected them. They're off the committee. So we'll put on Liz Cheney and we'll put on Adam Kinzinger. Adam Kinzinger is going to be out of office here in a few months because he got not primaried out. He got redistricted out of his district here in Illinois. So that's what you get for cooperating with Democrats. You get when they get power, they just dunk you out. But if you're wondering why the Capitol riot happened at all, I mean, it's part of what we're seeing right now in America. I mean, we have a political and social culture that allows and encourages political violence against anybody that's not on the left. We have Democratic Party members who commit crimes and get off scot-free. I'm talking about, you could just start with the high levels at the FBI, people on the so-called 7th floor, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, John Brennan lies into Congress,
Sussman.
And commits Sussman. There's a huge list of, if you are well connected, if you are part of the Democratic Party, if you are part of, oh my gosh, I'm going to say it, the deep state, you can actually commit crimes with impunity. You will not be held accountable. But if you are not on the left and you are caught up in some things, and they will find a way to charge you with crimes and ruin your life. So it's that kind of stuff, and it does not end in this country yet. I am not justifying riots. I think peaceful demonstrations are the way to go, but you can almost understand why people would get upset when they keep seeing this happen over and over and over again. Leftists can do whatever they want, anywhere, in the government, outside of government, and there are no almost no repercussions from it, even if they commit crimes. But people on the right, again, there's people from the January 6th who are charged with parading or interrupting a congressional proceeding, who are sitting in jail, rotting in solitary confinement, and they're awaiting trial, and our government is pressuring them to plead guilty and turn on their friends or whatever, or admit that Donald Trump is bad, and that one defendant had to admit in public court. She had to admit out loud that Joe Biden was the properly elected president of the United States. When you see things like this, you get a little angry. I don't know. And so to me, that's all. If I was to watch the January 6th, clown show that's going to be happening tonight, I'd be going insane, because these are the kind of things I'd be thinking about, because this is a complete sham.
Yeah, one more call for everyone that's just listening to the audio only. You have to join the live version of this. We have a very active commenters base here. Very interesting conversation about tea going on. So if you're interested in joining in the conversation, again, join us Thursdays noon Central Time. But yeah, like I mentioned, they're trying to get America to focus on this. I don't know how long. Is there any estimation of how long this circus act is going to go? Is it going to be like a one-day thing? Is it going to go on for a week, a month?
It'll be multiple days.
Okay, all right. So yeah, we'll focus on this as if it's more important than the raging gas prices and the raging prices of everything for that matter. And, people are really starting to feel the pinch of these things. And I'll say, when I'm driving to work and I see the gas prices going up by 10 cents almost every day, it seriously makes me feel sick to my stomach. But it's hard to make Trump and Republicans look bad with that story. So let's talk about something else. Oh, I know. Trump tried to take over the country with a group of fans at the Capitol building. Well, if the economy continues to shake apart, they're going to have to confront this reality sooner or later. But as of now, it appears as though the administration is pretending that the economy is doing fine for the most part. When inflation first started getting out of hand, the talking point from the administration was that inflation was just the result of the economy roaring back to life, and that it was almost a good sign that we were seeing inflation, because that was a testament to the economy coming back and people wanting to spend more money and buy more things. And it seems that they're somewhat still using this talking point. So I have this tweet from POTUS. This is a recent tweet. I think it was just the other day. Biden says, at the time I took office about 16 months ago, the economy had stalled and COVID was out of control. Today, thanks to the economic plan and the vaccination plan that my administration put into action, America has achieved the most robust recovery in modern history. So that's the official story, is that we are right now in the midst of the biggest recovery that the economy has ever seen. Which I think is very hard for people to believe when they're driving to anywhere and they see these gas prices. But the sentiment was also reflected in remarks that Biden gave about the latest jobs report just a few days ago. And there's a couple of statements here that I want your guys' reaction to. So I'll break it down into three parts. So the first part is him just kind of talking about the excellent jobs report and how unemployment rate is remaining at near historic lows at 3.6%. Chris, we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, and you were saying that, when they talk about the unemployment rate, it's incredibly misleading. You want to take it from here?
Yeah, it's just totally misleading, because if you look at the labor participation rate, it's still, near all-time lows. You can trace that back to the fact that throughout the pandemic, the federal government and many state governments, including the state of Illinois, for example, just made it so easy for people to stay at home, watch Netflix, and not work. And now, we are in an economy where there's a huge labor shortage. There's 11.4 million open unfilled jobs. And then, just anecdotally, everywhere I go, whether it's a restaurant or a store or wherever, people are saying that they can't hire, that people just won't work. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but I think primarily this is due to the fact that the government paid people not to work. Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan, which was completely unnecessary after the pandemic was over, after we had, the vaccine, sending everyone $1,400 checks. it just made the situation so much worse. And people have figured out ways to survive without having jobs. And this is something that we're going to have to deal with for, I think, for a very long time. So yes, he can sit there and say, the unemployment rate is 3.6%, but that doesn't matter because it's not a true gauge of the health of the labor market. The labor market's in shambles right now, and it's going to be in shambles unless and until the federal government, incentivizes people to return to work, because right now they're incentivizing people not to work.
Yeah. So then, I mean, that ties into the next kind of series of points that he makes during these remarks, and everything that we talk about is in the show notes if you want to read it in length here. But I got a couple of quotes from our POTUS here. Quote: "Because of the enormous progress we've made on the economy, the Americans can tackle inflation from a position of strength." And all of this I'm reading word for word, and they do seemingly a fairly good job of trying to clean up his words, but some of them are just Bidenisms built right into the sentence structure here. In fact, America is in a stronger economic position today than just about any other country in the world. Independent experts have projected that the U.S. economy could grow faster than China's economy this year. That hasn't happened since 1976, nearly one half century ago. The point is this: we've laid an economic foundation that's historically strong. Jim, does it feel like the economy is in a historically strong position? Because it doesn't for me.
Oh man, you're really dedicated to keeping me pissed off today, asking me these setup questions. Look, I am sick to death of being gaslit about what this economy is doing. I mean, it's infuriating to hear Joe Biden come out and tell us that, or tweet that, this is the strongest economy we've ever seen. That things are going great. Unemployment is down. Look, people know that the economy is in big trouble, that inflation has only begun. We haven't seen the end of it yet. It's almost $6 a gallon now. It was $5.91. I think last week it was $5.60. I mean, it's going, the gasoline prices are going up $2 a month at this rate. People know that this economy is not great. You can't convince people that it is just by spouting some kind of BS statistics, which you can make lie for you, that everything is fine. And it is infuriating. And I think this is where, elections do matter. If the elections and the votes are counted up correctly, that the Democrats are going to be in a very weakened position come November. What is it? November 1st, or I think that's the election day, or November 8th of this year, because people are not dumb. They will not be convinced, no matter how much Biden mumbles it out of his mouth, that things are fine and that him and his party should be rewarded for it on election day.
Right.
Grocery, people know. It's like, if the economy is so great, why is a loaf of bread twice what it was 6 months ago? Why does it cost me $125 to fill up my gas tank when it cost me $40 a year ago? You can't convince people. So this gaslighting, it's not going to work. No matter how much interference the media runs for this regime and his harebrained schemes, the reality on the ground is a lot different. Everybody knows what it is. And actually what you see is in the polls. We don't talk about polls a ton on this podcast, but I didn't think this was possible, but Joe Biden has lower approval ratings than Donald Trump did at this part of his presidency. And Joe Biden is apparently very mad about that. Well, maybe stop sabotaging our economy and gaslighting the American people, and maybe your numbers will go up.
Yeah, when you say gaslighting, that triggers me. It's just like, waste of fuel, stop gaslighting. But there's one more section of this of these Biden notes on the economy that I'm going to save for a little bit later. But obviously, there's a lot of people that are concerned. When they see the gas prices, when they go and see their grocery bill going up substantially every week. I mean, these two things alone are enough to kind of sound the alarm for people that are like, you know what, maybe we should start cutting back or possibly saving for a rainy day that seems to be right around the corner. But when highly influential people come out and warn about an impending economic hurricane, that scares the crap out of people. And that's what happened recently with Jamie Dimon, who is CEO, Dimon, there's no D at
Yes.
the end,
Right.
CEO of JP Morgan Chase, who is quoted here saying, I said there would be storm clouds, but I'm going to change it. It's a hurricane, Dimon said Wednesday at a financial conference in New York. While conditions seem fine at the moment, nobody knows if a hurricane is a minor one or a superstorm Sandy, he added. You better brace yourself, Dimon told a room full of analysts and investors. JP Morgan is bracing ourselves, and we're going to be very conservative with our balance sheet. Right now, it's kind of sunny. Things are doing fine. Everyone thinks the Fed can handle this, Dimon said. That hurricane is right out there, right down the road, coming our way. He also talks about how, because of the conflicts going on, the war with Russia and Ukraine, that this is probably going to result in oil prices to continue to go up. Right now, what is it, like $120 a barrel is that the prices for crude oil? He's saying that it's potentially going to hit $150 to $175 a barrel. So imagine what that's going to look like when that filters down into what our gas prices are at the pump. So, I mean, this isn't some Alex Jones type that's sounding the alarm because he's trying to sell survival food kits and vitamin pills or anything like that. Like, this is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase saying these things. Chris, shouldn't we be listening to what he has to say here? What do you think?
Yeah, I think in general, we should be listening to what Jamie Dimon has to say from a macroeconomic perspective. However, I tend to disagree a lot with Jamie Dimon when it comes to economic policies. In general, I think that, he is in favor of big government, supporting big banks, and he was not complaining or whining whatsoever when the Fed was just printing money like to no end, and JP Morgan was lending that money out and just making hand over fist. I'm much more concerned with how this is impacting the average American, and just a couple of statistics to just show how bad the current economy is for the common American. Is 67% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and the savings rate is at an all-time low, and credit card utilization rate is at an all-time high. So yes, during the throes of the pandemic, people were given government checks, which lots of them used to pay down debt or maybe stowed away. However, those have been spent, and now so many people are resorting to putting stuff on credit, and you're going to get interest rates just getting higher and higher and higher, and they're going to pay higher and higher interest rates on the giant credit card debt that they're accumulating, and this is just going to spiral out of control. And Donnie, just one other thing that I think we should pay particular attention to: in the latest jobs report, they said that wages had gone up by 5%, but that does not mean that people's discretionary income is increasing, because inflation is up 8.3%, and that is a very, very low estimate of inflation.
It's not real.
Yeah, take that CPI index with a giant grain of salt, because the real inflation impact on people is more like 20-30%. So if they're making 5% higher in wages, good for them, but that is being lost because everything is more expensive. Everything is
right.
more expensive.
It's hard to take it with a grain of salt, because even salt is getting more expensive. Nobody laughs at my jokes. This is ridiculous.
No. There's a reason for that.
You're both fired. You're both fired.
Well, look, I read a story the other day, just to follow on what Chris said. We're just going to move on.
Andy, give me some props.
Going to move on. I guess we need to get some canned laughter on here to help you out, Donnie.
All right, Andy was laughing in the background. That. Okay, go ahead.
No, I just read a story on the Wall Street Journal the other day about how lawn care companies, so the guys who cut your grass and collect your leaves and trim your hedges and all that stuff, costs for them have gone up 22%. And that's actually, I would think, looking at what the struggles of a lawn care company is a really good snapshot of what it's like to be a small businessman. Sure. Because a lot of these businesses are very they're very mom and pop. Often they'll maybe have 10 or 12 guys, and they run a few lawnmowers out there. But the costs of gasoline, for instance, of course, which is a big expense for them. Spare parts. There was a guy who said, I can't, a belt breaks on my lawnmower, on some of my equipment, and it costs 3 times as much today as it did last year to buy that part. And so these guys, they go to their customers, they go to the homeowners and say, look, I know I charged you $300 a month last year. I'm going to have to, in order for me to just barely get by, I'm going to have to charge you $550 or even more. And so they lose customers. And so they lose people that they can on their crews because they don't have enough jobs to do it. Or they used to go out wide and have a big, big area that was kind of their territory for cutting grass. And now they're going to bring that in because it's too expensive to keep driving all the way out there to do someone's lawn. So, this is where the gaslighting comes in. We're like, say, wow, we created 6 million jobs. It's like, shutting the entire economy down and telling people to stay home and not go to work, and having massive layoffs and all of that, and then letting some of them go back to work is not creating 6 million new jobs. First of all, but we still have a hiring crisis in this country. There are a lot of small businesses and restaurants. You go to a restaurant and you can tell they're understaffed, or they'll even have notes out saying that, some of the services you're used to are not available because we don't have enough staff to do it. I mean, this economy, I am still, despite what Joe Biden says, or if you even took him at face value, where's the good news? Has anyone heard any good news about the economy in the last 2 years since COVID? Of course, the answer is no. But we do remember, it wasn't that long ago, we actually did have the best economy that most people can remember in their lifetimes during the Trump administration. We were energy independent. We had strong economic growth. We had the lowest Black and another minority unemployment rates in the history of the country. And so to have only experienced that 3 years ago, to listen to the White House and this president tell you don't know how good you have it is an insult. And they're going to pay for it at the ballot box.
Well, and just to expand on what Jim was saying, during the heyday of the Trump economy, we know that the people at the bottom rungs of the income ladder were actually making much more than the people at the very top, and we know that that's because of the tax cuts and the regulation restrictions that happened. And we also know that during Trump's years before the pandemic hit, that we had healthy economic growth. And Donnie, we know that the economy shrank last quarter under Joe Biden. So at the most macro level possible, the economy is in the tank. We are on the verge of a recession, and we are probably going to enter a stagflation situation here. And it's just it's so sad because this is all self-induced. Joe Biden inherited an economy that was in a V-shaped recovery. He inherited a bunch of vaccines ready to go, and on day one, he put the kibosh on that. His anti-energy policies, his taxes, his just profligate government spending,
regulations,
and the incredible amount of regulations that he has put upon the economy is stifling production, and it's also stifling job creation. So it makes it makes sense that we are in a really down economy right now, and it's because of the policies coming out of the White House. So he keeps saying that he's doing everything he can, and there's nothing that he can do to lower gas prices or to fight inflation. That is just not true. And the American people know that. And, I think it was last week that we were saying the American people are not as stupid as Joe Biden and the White House thinks they are. And this is all, I think, playing out before us, the polling and just everything. Everywhere I go, people, are saying stuff that, gosh, we can't take this any longer. We need a change.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon is not the only one kind of sounding this alarm. Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary under Obama, said in a recent interview for Bloomberg that a coming recession is, quote, the most likely thing. It says in this article, he added that the odds of a recession-inducing hard landing, a prolonged economic downturn that follows after a period of rapid growth are, quote, certainly better than half and quite possibly 2/3 or more chance of happening, right? Elon Musk also echoed these sentiments when he said that he has a super bad feeling. That's the quote, super bad feeling about the economy. So when I hear, all of these takes from these high level people, coupled with the inflation and the gas prices and the supposed supply chain disruption, it makes the statements made by the Biden administration seem like they are A, in denial of the economic reality, and or B, that they're just not taking the situation seriously. Jim, do you think it's both of those or more one or the other?
More, repeat the question.
Given the global nature of
That Jim just had a
I
heart attack.
didn't mean to do that. What was the question again?
That is the Biden administration just in denial, or are they just not taking the situation seriously? Because they could have meetings with all of these people at the same time if they wanted to. Like, all right, well, what are you seeing? They don't seem to be doing that. So is it just denial or just not taking it seriously, or a third option?
I think a third option is incompetence. And well, I think I said this on a previous podcast that I think the destruction of our U.S. economy, the reordering of it, is what's on the agenda. They don't like the fact that that we were energy independent, so they put an end to that very quickly. They don't like the fact that the United States had a strong, the strongest economy in the world at the time when Trump was president. So they're taking care of that right now too, doing all they can. They're certainly not doing anything to help, get us out of a post-COVID recession. It's part of the plan. You can't, I said this last week, you can't fundamentally transform a nation full of productive, healthy, happy people. And the fundamental transformation in the United States is what Barack Obama wanted to do when he came into office in 2008. He didn't fully transform it. He thought Hillary was going to be the one to complete the job. There was a little interregnum of sanity and America First policies from Donald Trump, and now they get to go back to the program again. These are ideologues who believe that it's not a good thing if the United States is prosperous and powerful in the world. They really believe that. And so if you believe that, what is your agenda? Your agenda is to weaken the United States. It's to get people to get used to not being the top dog in the world, to be honest. That's why people have patriotic pride, because the United States is awesome. We are economic powerhouses. We are cultural powerhouses. We dominate the world. The left and the leftists in this administration don't like that. So when you see all this bad news happening and they just try to pretend that the economy isn't bad, or they'll say those stupid things that Biden said, just so that people don't get too upset. But look, this is the agenda. The agenda is a smaller United States of America, both economically, culturally, and maybe not culturally, but certainly economically and militarily and powerful and influential on the world stage. We have to be brought down. We've been telling the world what to do for far too long, and we're so arrogant. So we had this coming to us, guys. We had this coming to us.
I've always said, or I've at least said this since the Trump era, that the Democrats should run on the slogan "Make America Europe Again." So that seems to be the path that we're heading down.
Donnie, I think this is intentional, and I think that they are just trying to create chaos across the board, whether it's in the economy or whether it's with outrageous crime, or whether what's going on at the border. I just think they're just trying to create a lot of chaos so that. Go ahead.
No, I just don't know. Like, I hate to bring politics up because I'd rather talk about policy than politics, but I know that what's most important for politicians is politics, right? So I just can't imagine that they think that this message of, oh no, everything's fine. Don't look at the gas prices. Everything's fine.
I disagree. I think that they are willing to sacrifice an election cycle every so often to implement the changes that they want. Just like Barack Obama said during the run up to Obamacare passing, he's like, you know what? It's fine because we lost Congress after it, but we got it through. And once a program is in place, or once a policy is in place, it's almost impossible to get rid of it. So I think that they take that much more long road approach. Sure. Where fine, we might lose the 2022 midterms, but look at all the stuff that we got into place. Yeah. And good luck ever getting rid of it.
Yeah, it's easy to kind of spike the football on Joe Biden because he's just so. I won't even finish that sentence. But it's some of the other higher ups in the administration, when they are just so missing the target, it really makes you wonder how they're even managing to run this country in any way, right? So I've got
running it into the ground on purpose.
I've got the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said she was wrong a year ago when she said that the anticipated inflation would be a, quote, a small risk, manageable, and not a problem. That is quite an understatement. Don't worry. It was only the Secretary of the Treasury that misread inflation this terribly. Don't worry, everyone. We'll let the government control more of our lives and all of that because they're doing such a good job of all the stuff that they're in control of now. We have a couple of clips of Yellen talking about this inflation surprise. So instead of me paraphrasing her, we can listen to her talk. Jim, if you want to play clip 1, or Andy, whoever's controlling this.
Still view inflation, which remains near a 40-year high, as transitory, or do you expect an extended period of raised inflation?
Well, when I said that inflation would be transitory, what I was not anticipating was a scenario in which we would end up contending with multiple variants of COVID that would be scrambling our economy and global supply chains, and I was not envisioning impacts on food and energy prices we've seen from Russia's invasion. So I do expect inflation to remain high, although I very much hope that it will be coming down now.
Okay, I take back what I said about the higher-ups not being on the same level as Joe Biden, because she reminded me of a lady that was trying to sell me yarn at Hobby Lobby the other day. So the fact that she was Treasury Secretary is a little concerning to me. Let's do a couple of these clips, because we've got another one of her talking about how to combat inflation. We already covered Joe Biden's plan last week and how much of a joke it is. But again, here's the Secretary of the
plan. She just said she hopes. She
Yes.
hopes it. Yeah, she has no plan.
Well, let's see what she has to say. Go ahead and play the next clip.
Of these markets, that's virtually impossible for us to insulate ourselves from shocks like the ones that are occurring in Russia that move global oil prices. And look, over the medium term, the critical thing is that we become more dependent on the wind and the sun that are not subject to geopolitical influences, and passing clean energy credits that will boost non-renewables is, I think, really critical to addressing climate change and our energy costs for households going forward.
Okay. That we talk about word salad sometimes. This kind of ties into the next kind of portion of the podcast, which is them doubling down on renewable energy. So you see her talking about that. And in the one thing that I kind of punted to later when I was talking about Joe Biden's remarks in regards to the economy, he made mention of the Putin price hike. He made sure to mention that. And he talked about how we have to lean more into renewable energy and stuff so that we're not reliant on a dictator on the other half of the country. But, Jim, I'll let you talk about this. But I just want to mention right off the bat, her saying that wind and solar isn't subject to geopolitical stuff going on around the world is false. It's absolutely false. Yeah,
How is that
get
false?
it. I get it. There's no war that's going to cause the sunlight to fall on our, well, maybe not, but it's
Right.
not going to affect the sunlight coming down on our solar panels and all of that. But you're completely ignoring the fact that we get all of our rare earth materials from places like China to build the solar panels that we use to collect the sunlight. I'm pretty sure that our relationship with China could be a little finicky at sometimes and maybe subject to geopolitical pressures. So the fact that she just mentioned that as if we just have these free wind and solar things that are just collecting all this free energy is ridiculous. And it's ridiculous to hear it from somebody at such a high level of the government. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, it's discouraging if you're worried about the future of the country and our economy. It's pretty discouraging to hear that kind of word salad and the halting, searching for words, answers to things, the stuttering, and I can't quite articulate what's going on, and the fact that she said that we need more subsidies for non-renewables when she actually meant renewables.
Right,
She meant the opposite of what she said is what she actually meant. But she said, if you take her at her word, she just said we need to have subsidies for fossil fuels. So okay, fine, let's do that, I guess. But she's completely out of touch. Again, I think this steps up to the idea that this is on purpose. Like, they don't care. They're not taking any steps that would actually mitigate the inflation crisis and the economic crisis in this country.
Yeah.
If you want energy that is not subject to the whims of geopolitics, drill. Just get all the energy here. You can't,
Right.
as you mentioned, Donald. Where do they think all the solar panels come from? Where do they think all these wind turbines come from? They come from materials mined and controlled basically by China. They've been cornering the market on this for years. Why? Because they know that the Western economies are dumb and that they are enthralled to the environmental left, and so they are committed to going green by using child labor run by the Chinese to get all this materials out of the ground, to be to create solar panels at slave labor camps that filled with Uyghurs, and then sell it back to the dummies in the West who are thinking they're doing something good by supporting such an evil economic model. But again, if you actually wanted to make sure that the United States energy grid and our energy economy was not dependent on Russia or China or Africa or any other place in the world that is subject to strife, drill your own energy. And we did that under Donald Trump. We were energy independent. It did have a huge effect on the price of the global price of crude and natural gas around the world, because they knew that, as long as Donald Trump was president, we're going to drill as much as possible. That brought the price of the future, futures prices of fossil fuels down, because we were a very vigorous and active participant in the global energy economy. Day one, Joe Biden said, forget it. We're out. We're done. And so that's why that's a huge factor in the rise of the price of crude. I was just thinking about this the other day. Yes, Russia is a big producer of oil and natural gas, and the world has basically said, we don't want your oil and natural gas anymore. What a tremendous opportunity for the United States to fill in that gap. We could have actually increased by a lot our production of oil and natural gas and given that to the world to make up for Russia. That would actually put real pressure on them, because they figured, even if we get right with the world again, the energy economy is now changed, and we will never be as dominant as we once were, because the United States has filled in the gap. Did anybody even talk about doing something like that? Would this administration even dream of doing something like that? No. The point is for us to suffer.
Yeah, our chat is on point right now. Andy, if you showed this one already, I'm sorry, but this comment had me laughing while Jim was talking.
Mhm.
Worship Ra, the Egyptian sun god, and Aztec wind god. I can't pronounce that. And the economy will be fine. That's seriously, that's our energy policy of this country right now. It's absurd. There is another Yellen clip. We are running a little short on time. Jim, do you think it's worth playing, or should we recap it? What do you think?
No, I think let's play this clip, because so now we're going to hear from Janet Yellen, who everybody says is a genius, is the Treasury Secretary of the United States. These are her solutions. If the United States does these things, we'll whip inflation. Here we go.
I believe the president believes Congress can do a lot to mitigate some of the most important and burdensome costs that households face, whether it's that they can't find affordable housing, that prescription drug prices are too high, and we can address that while also raising revenue for the government by making the investments in renewables that are necessary to bring down utility bills, infrastructure, investment in people, in education and training, investment in child care and early childhood education, elder care that would enable greater labor force participation. All of that could help to bring down inflation and lead to strong, sustainable, stable growth.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that they're trying to rescue our economy by pursuing this fake economy of generating renewable energy. It's ridiculous. And this is the path that they're going down. They started off early with all of this stuff, with gas prices going up, saying, well, just buy an electric vehicle, as if, everyone's got $50,000 to spend. But the Biden administration apparently just invoked the Defense Production Act to spur the production of solar panels and other clean energy technologies. I'm reading from a USA Today article. Unless the U.S. expands manufacturing, the nation will have to rely on imports for the climate change fighting technology, the administration said in an announcement decision on Monday. They would leave the U.S. vulnerable to supply chain problems and unable to benefit from jobs connected to the growing industry. Quote, for too long, the nation's clean energy supply chain has been over-reliant on foreign sources and adversarial nations, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm said in a statement. The administration also announced it won't impose tariffs for 2 years on panels from Southeast Asia, while the Commerce Department reviews whether the imports violate trade rules. Most solar panels installed in the U.S. are imported, with about 3/4 of the imports coming from Southeast Asia. An acute shortage of panels is causing the solar projects across the country to be postponed or canceled, the administration said, in declaring the emergency conditions require any new tariffs to be paused while the U.S. increases its domestic supply. So, Jim or Chris, maybe you can enlighten me. I'm not entirely sure what these tariffs they're talking about are. Are these the ones that are imposed on them because China steals our intellectual properties on a daily basis? Or is it the tariffs that were imposed because they use Uyghur slave labor to build the panels? Which one are they waiving? Do you know? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But the other thing to mention is that, like I said, we can use the panels to collect energy from the sun or the wind, or turbines for the wind. We could even build those panels in America, but we're still going to be reliant on China for the rare earth materials to build those things. There's no way that you can cut it unless we start mining substantially here in the United States, but I'm pretty sure there's a couple of advocacy groups in the United States that would be against that. So all of this is even made worse when you recognize the reality of the situation when it comes to wind and solar being terrible sources of energy. Just terrible. Do we have to do another episode on why wind and solar are so terrible at collecting energy to run on? It's unbelievable.
I mean, look back, or people can rewind this podcast and go back to what Janet Yellen said in that testimony to Congress, that the way to fight inflation, among the many things, is, of course, just pour another, I don't know, how about another $3 trillion into the economy from the government? Just print more money and put it in the economy. She was trying to run away from the fact that she said privately that she agreed with Larry Summers, that there was a report that she had told the Biden administration to stop spending so much, that you need to cut down your stimulus plan by at least a third, or you're going to risk massive runaway inflation. Of course, she wasn't listened to, and now she denies that she actually even said it. So, but her solutions there in front of Congress, one of them is investments in green energy, so that people, and she said this would reduce the energy bills of the American people, as if we just did that tomorrow. Then we're spending $30 less on to heat our homes in the winter, this coming winter. It's complete magical fantasy thinking, and I don't even think she's that dumb. But what people have to know is that wind and solar, just on its own, wind and solar right now in our energy economy is more expensive than coal and natural gas. If there are programs in states, I think Illinois is one, where you can volunteer to get X percentage of your energy from so-called renewable sources, and they let you know, well, it's going to be more expensive for you. So of course people don't volunteer to do it because they're not stupid, and they're not going to be doing it now. Coal and natural gas is actually still by far the dominant. Seriously. That's right. But coal and natural gas is by far still the dominant source of energy in this country, and should remain so, and will remain so unless Biden starts taking all these things offline. I used to call it a slow rolling disaster on all fronts of the United States. I don't think it's going so slow anymore. Things seem to be speeding up on how bad things are running, from the energy economy to inflation to policy all over the place.
Yeah, you're right. It's like as if we're like, all right, let's do wind and solar, and then tomorrow they just turn on the wind and solar and all of our prices go down. Like, she even said it, like, You have to build up the infrastructure. You have to find places to build these massive sprawling solar farms and wind farms and all of that. That, guess what? People don't like to live around. So it's actually very hard to find places. And even if you do find a place to put it, you have to build all the transmission wires to go from that to population centers where people live. How long do you think all of that's going to take before we could actually see a reduction in energy prices as a result of this? It's ridiculous, but I think we are going to do a show. I see this quote here, or a comment, I should say. Do a show on the horrible inefficiencies of wind and solar. I think we're going to do that. I think we're going to have to get Isaac Orr back on the show for next week, and we're just going to do a full energy episode. I specifically want to do it to knock down some of these ridiculous narratives that, like, there's nothing that we can do to lower the price of gas or whatever, because this is a global thing. I've seen that on Twitter so many times. It's unbelievable. I can't believe the narrative has gone this far. So yeah, we're going to have to address that probably next week. Chris, I'm going to give you the last word on anything you want to say, because we are starting to run long here on the podcast, but I'll give you the closing remarks here.
Yeah. So the pattern that I've noticed is that the Biden administration is constantly talking about lowering prices. Higher prices are a symptom of inflation, and that the real inflationary drivers are all the government spending and the taxes and regulations that are crushing the supply. So unless and until the Biden administration says we are going to spur economic growth and production by relaxing regulations and decreasing taxes, we're never going to get out of this inflationary spiral that we're stuck in. So this, they're just trying to lower prices artificially, but that's not going to work. All it's going to do is actually misallocate more resources and create more disruption in the economy.
Right. But don't worry, everyone. Those people that stole Nancy Pelosi's podium and took selfies in the rotunda, they're going to be held accountable tonight. So don't worry about any of the other stuff that we talked about. That's the real important message today. All right. Thank you all. Thank everyone for tuning into this episode of the In the Tank podcast. Like I said, if you're listening to this audio only, you're probably listening on a Friday. You can join us a day earlier on Thursdays. Watch the video component of the show. Put a face to the voice. Join in the conversation. Leave your comments and questions. Maybe we'll show your comment on screen. Maybe we'll address your questions on the fly. If you'd like, you can follow us on Twitter at InTheTankPod. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for the show, feel free to email us at inthetankpodcast@gmail.com. Jim Lakely, where can the fine people find you?
At J Lakely on Twitter, at Heartland Inst on Twitter, and always visit heartland.org.
Fantastic. Chris Talgo, what do you have to pitch today?
StopItSocialism.com and heartland.org.
Fantastic. Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to talk to you next week.